What's up, guys? My name is Andy, and this is my podcast. So, today I thought it was time to talk about Charlie Kirk's memorial service. Now, I wanted to wait a while. Obviously, it's been a while since that took place. I don't know the exact day, but you know as well as I do, it's been a little bit, right? So, we have a little bit of distance from it, and I waited intentionally to comment on it because I wanted to get a little bit of distance from it before I did. I wanted the dust to settle first, and yeah, I just wanted the dust to settle first. Obviously, the name of the podcast is the Godly Troublemaker Podcast, so we're about making the right kind of trouble, but I didn't want to cause trouble for no reason, right? People had for the most part, it was an overwhelmingly positive response from the memorial, and I didn't want to just cause trouble for trouble's sake. And I thought anything that I say at this point that is critical, I'm just going to sound like a prick, and I don't want that. I don't want that. I didn't want there to be. I didn't think people would hear what I actually had to say at that point, which is fine, right? The dust needed to settle, and we needed to get a little bit of distance. And I definitely didn't want anybody to hear me saying anything negative about Charlie Kirk because I was critiquing his memorial. And I'm not saying anything negative about him at all. Obviously, it's his memorial. It has nothing to do. Well, it has everything to do with him, and yet it's completely outside of his control because he's dead. So I'm not critiquing him in any way, shape, or form. I've written about him positively. There's I believe it's volume 1 of Dude Votional. There's a very positive chapter in there where about Charlie Kirk and his life and what he did and such. And I've been very positive about his work and what he was able to accomplish and so on. So I didn't want people to hear me like attacking him, which is ridiculous, but people are ridiculous. So anyway, when you have such a massive thing like Charlie Kirk's assassination and then everything that transpired after that leading to the memorial service, you had this massive public movement, right? People, it affected people. It really truly did. When you have that many people involved in something and glued to not the television anymore, probably social media, right? It's far more influential. When that happens, when you have that many people concerned about something, interested, invested in something, people are very easy to manipulate. Am I saying that everyone that was involved, everyone, the public's desire to be involved, was manipulated? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just simply stating that as a matter of fact, that when you have that many people concerned about something, they become very easy to manipulate. Just think about life after 9/11, or even just think about the last few years, several years, 5 years, really, that we've lived through, right? I'm not pointing fingers at anybody particularly. I'm pointing my finger at just not hysteria, but there's some of that, but mass public concern. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to throw that out there and leave that there. I think just for future reference, when we see things like this, where it's affecting you, you're concerned, and you look around, everyone else is very concerned. You're like, oh man, something is really happening. That was everyone felt that way. I say everyone, but there's probably a few people that didn't feel that way. But for the most part, I think we're safe in assuming that it affected everybody. Okay. When things like that happen, and I know it's impossible to do, but you have to really, really try to step back and get a little bit of distance so that you can get perspective on things. Because when that's the case, people can be swayed very quickly and very, very easily. So there, I'll leave that alone. So I want my critique to come it's going to come from a couple different angles. This is not exhaustive, right? These are just some of my initial thoughts, so you can take them for what they are. They're my initial thoughts, and interact with them as such. I hope they're a blessing. Maybe some of you felt the same way and are like, okay, thank you, I'm not alone. Anyway, this is just my hot take, and by no means is it exhaustive. So just throwing that out there. So his assassination affected the nation, right? It affected me. It affected my home. Everybody was kind of invested in this thing, and everybody felt like, okay, we've just turned the corner into something that we're not sure what we're going into, right? And turning point, tipping point was the slogan. What's going on? Either way, it affected us all, and I think that the desire for a memorial in order to honor Charlie Kirk was natural and organic. People descended upon Arizona, like just a massive overswell of people wanted to be involved in this thing. And I think that was organic. I think people genuinely thought what happened to this young man was terrible, and we're thankful for everything. We're thankful for his bravery, we're thankful for his courage, we're thankful for his witness, and we're thankful for his love for God and country type thing. And that's a good thing. That's a wonderful thing to honor men like that, right? Because what you honor shapes future direction, right? So it's good to honor what is honorable, and it's good to honor what is honorable nationally as a corporate people. That is a good thing to do, to honor fallen heroes, if you will. I think that was so that public overswell, upswell, or whatever term you want to use for it, was good. I also think if you're looking at it from the outside, let's just put on our Bond villain hat for a minute. If you're looking at something like that is organic and real, and is massive, that's also a very dangerous thing, because if you're someone that likes to control things, that's something you got to get in front of. That's something that you have to control, because if you don't, it's going to get ahead of you and it's going to control you. And people with money and power and position don't like that kind of thing. So I think it started off as a very good thing. I think this is my opinion. I think it was turned into a circus, and I think that's really, really sad. So I had to remind myself when I was watching it, I would tune in and tune out and tune in and tune out. I would get angry and sad and angry and sad, and I had to remind myself that this is a memorial service. I understand that. I have to take it for what it is. It's a memorial service. This is not a church worship service. Don't judge it as such. I got to loosen up. People are experiencing something that is good, and I gotta lighten up. Okay. So I had to remind myself of that a lot. However, this is the problem that I have, even still reflecting upon it. Again, memorial service, I know that. However, it was on a Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, pretty much most of the afternoon, right? It was pretty long. People repeatedly called it worship. So it's on a Sunday, it's on the Lord's Day. Many people involved were repeatedly calling it worship, and a lot of people that were involved and were there that day, and there were an awful lot of pastors that went there that day to be involved with it, or to be part of it, which I kind of have a bit of a problem with. Like, okay, so I get it. People want to honor Charlie Kirk. That's a good thing. But my impression was, watching all of this, that people just wanted to be a part of the spectacle because it was such a massive thing. To say they were a part of history, or to say that they were a part of this big event. And I don't like that. That is like, I wouldn't want what I wouldn't like what was going on in my heart if that was the case. I would say, okay, if there's any of that, I need to bow out, right? Because it's just not right. And so many people were calling it a revival. Look at all of these people in one spot. So apparently, those are our standards for revival today. You just get an awful lot of people in one spot. And you say, Andy, you're kind of being a jerk because, there was some little fragments of Jesus pixie dust sprinkled throughout the event. Here's the thing. Revivals don't begin with selfies. They usually don't begin with selfies and safety and everybody saying, this revival is great. They usually begin with repentance and sackcloth and ashes, with a contrite heart before the Lord, not with selfies and spectacle. And usually the proof is in the pudding, right? Because that word revival is thrown out so freely and so easily. And the true test is the proof is in the pudding, right? What has transpired after the event? There were an awful lot of people there. I don't know the exact number. I don't know that you could get an exact number, right, of people that were there. You could get a number of people that were inside, but there were so many people outside and all of that. If this was true revival, where's the massive, widespread repentance in people's lives? And when it is in their lives, where's the massive public overswell, upswell, whatever the phrase is, of those same people that are longing for Jesus? Where is that desire and demand for national repentance, right? And maybe it's there. Maybe I'm just completely blind to it. But I would say before we throw out that term and just try to apply it to everything, we might want to think that through a little bit. Okay. Looking at it, I like the memorial. It was a memorial. I have to keep telling myself that. I think the entire focus was on the size and the spectacle of the event. Looking at it, that's what you saw, right? Was the size and the spectacle. I don't think it was on Christ or how Christ used Charlie. Okay? Now, those things could have been mentioned in passing. I'm sure as I say that, people are like, oh, no, this, that, and the other. Okay, that's fine. However, I don't think that's the case, right? And this is part of my problem with Big Eva. I just personal confession, I disdain Big Eva and the triteness of all of it. I think it takes away from Christ and his glory. I think you take away with your left what you want to build or what you say you're building with your right. Even if you were to receive a wonderful message, the focus is not on the message. It's on everything surrounding it, right? It's all smoke and mirrors. I don't know how we can't see that, right? That becomes the message when things get, I would say, out of control like that. Some see that as a sign of God's blessing. Okay. Sure. Well, more power to you, I guess. I don't. I think I understand the temptation, but I think it's you're taking away with your left what you really, even if your motives are pure, I think it's still removing with one hand what you want to build with your other. Regarding the entirety of I almost said service, regarding the entirety of the memorial, the whole thing was a spectacle, and it was meant to be a spectacle. It was massive. It was the tone was completely emotive. I thought it was completely emotive. It was hyper feminine in tone, and I think for the most part, you're going to get mad at me for saying this, but for the most part, I think it was trite and superficial. Now, was there some Jesus pixie dust on it? Sure, certainly. But in my interaction with the church, my involvement with the church, and in ministering to people over a chunk of time now, more than 25% of my life, the one thing that I disdain more than anything else is triteness in the church. That it's a mile wide and it's an inch deep, and a lot of that is sheep who don't want to be shepherded, and a lot of it is from weak, soft, shallow preaching and leadership, and I disdain that. It is such a problem, and it does actually more harm than good, regardless of what you want to cover it with. It always ends up doing more harm than good, and I think you give people a very real false sense of security. And it, just over the last couple of years of my life, I've been able to interact with a lot of people that go to these types of churches, and my gut takeaway from all of those conversations is that these people are like sheep without a shepherd. And it makes me angry, and it makes me sad, and it makes me angry again. And then I'm sad about being angry, and then I'm angry about being sad. And it really, really bothers me, because Jesus is so good. And our desire should be to give him to the people. Give them Jesus. And then die and be forgotten, right? That's the gig. And if you don't like that, do something else. So it just, people need to be fed. I'll just say that. Now, certainly not all of it was, right? So if you're hearing this and you're like, dude, there was some good stuff there. You're right. There was some good stuff there. There were some things that Rubio said that I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. The churchy folk that were there, they said some of the right things, right? Okay. Yeah, they said some of the right things, I guess. I don't, okay. So I thought there were some things that Rubio said that were good and really surprised me. And same thing with Tucker. I thought, okay, wow, this is cool. And, I like Tucker. So, he just seems like an honest broker, and in an age where everything is curated, I like that. But my point here is that despite the fact that there were some good things, that the good was still drowned out by the massive spectacle of the entirety of it. Now, I think because of our response, because of the nation's response to what happened, I think there was a very real energy there from the people, and a very real desire for change. And that was all really, really good. But I think that energy, like I said a little bit ago, that energy from people is very dangerous, right? I think that it's a very dangerous thing. And but when I say dangerous, I mean dangerous to the right people. That I think it's a very good thing. I think it was organic, and yet at the same time, I think that in some way, I got to be careful because I'm not saying the entirety of this, and I'm not saying everybody that was involved with the memorial it was a part of this at all. But I think in a very real sense, the memorial was used to control and to dissipate that energy, because after the memorial, everybody was just kind of like, okay, we did this thing. We were a part of this thing. Charlie was a good guy, and we honored him, and we all go back to our lives, and everything is hunky dory, and we all pretend like, yeah, it was unfortunate, but okay, now we're back to every day, right? Like nothing happened. And that's just very, very concerning to me. People were they felt like they were a part of something. They were given an emotional high, and then they moved on. They went right back to their lives. And the energy just kind of dissipated. It just kind of left the room. And that type of stuff is really concerning, because you have something that could have been used, that would have been very, very good for our nation. It would have been very uncomfortable, because some things need to happen. And I just don't know how those things happen while maintaining comfort. And maybe that's what we want. Maybe we're just not there. No matter what, people will always gravitate towards comfort. I read a book a while back where was it? I think it was Michael Easter. Michael Easter's the guy. Comfort Crisis or something along those lines. And then he has another one too that's actually they're pretty fun to listen to and to read. The one you can get on Audible, that's like there's one you can get on Audible for free, I think. Yeah, I think you can get it for free. But anyway, he makes a point that given the choice between an escalator or stairs, only 2% of the population will take the stairs. They know the stairs are better for them. They know the exercise is good. They know getting the steps in are good. And yet 98% of people will take the escalator every time, right? They'll always go towards ease and comfort. And I think we're there. I think we're there in the church. I think that's where our country's at. And I think it shows. And I have a whole lot more to say about that, but I'm gonna just keep moving because I don't want to go too horribly long on this, or to go on too many other rabbit trails. That might be a good podcast in and of itself. But as a nation, and even more so than that, as a church that is going to drive these things, those are things we got to work out, because the pursuit of comfort is a noose around our neck. Okay, so Erica Kirk, let's throw the elephant on the table. Her speech was actually what everybody left talking about. That was what made the biggest splash. Everyone was focused on this. Everyone was fawning all over her, as if she had the holy glow, right? Like something happened. She was filled with the Spirit and was so, and in part because of what she said when she got up and she said, and okay, so regarding Erica Kirk, like my hot take on it is that I think her behavior has been kind of weird ever since the beginning. Now that doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? It doesn't mean anything. There could be 101 reasons for that. Right? Obviously, if we were in that position, you're like, how would you act? I don't know. Right? But it seems a little weird. But anyway, her line where she got up and very, very early on, she said emotionally, I forgive that young man, I forgive him, I believe was exactly what she said. And of course that was, the line heard around the world. So, and everybody was like, this is the most amazing thing that has ever happened in the history of the world. And my thought when I heard that was much different than everybody else's. So I'm just going to say this briefly, and I'm not going to go into the theology of it and why I responded the way that I did. That's probably good for another podcast, maybe a shorter one, just drawing this out a little bit. But my first thought was, we don't understand, and I expect this from unbelievers. I don't expect this from believers. I mean, I guess I do at this point, because I look at the memorial and then I look at the broader evangelicalism in our country, and I guess it makes sense, right? It's a mile wide and an inch deep. And my thought was that we just really don't understand the law and the gospel. We don't understand justice and mercy. We don't understand wrath and grace. And we certainly don't understand the entire Old Testament sacrificial system. We don't understand the Day of Atonement, and we don't understand what was actually accomplished by Jesus on the cross and the transaction that took place, and the Father approving of the Son's work, which means that we don't really understand the gospel, and we don't really understand forgiveness. So my take was different. Probably more frustration and sadness than delight and joy, like most people experienced. I think there are 101 other things that she could have said that would have been good and helpful and true. I don't think that was the proper word to use given the context. I think she was probably very heavily coached. I don't know that for sure. This is just my take. The reason I say I think she was heavily coached, I think probably she probably received some, I think, manipulative and bad counsel. But why do I say that? Well, because of the people that were involved in the event. I think she probably just naturally sought counsel from a lot of pastors, and I think the weight of that, and the people probably thought more of themselves than they should have, or are involved with people that they shouldn't be, or they're just completely shallow and concerned about optics and public opinion more so than about Erica's soul, or saying something that is pleasing and glorifying to Christ. But I think she was probably heavily counseled by people. And I think that because that event, there was a ton of money that went into that event. And there was an awful lot of money that was raised as a result of that event. Right? You're not just going to, she's not just going out there and going to ad lib that. Okay? And she's now the CEO of a multi-million-dollar, very influential nonprofit. So I don't think my assessment that she was heavily coached, I don't think that's ungrounded. Okay, I think that's a reasonable thing to say. I can't prove it, but I think she probably was. Now that's me trying to throw a little bit of shade on her and not attack her, but maybe more so attack the people around her. Also, what was implied in that statement? Now, keep in mind, I don't know how long after the actual assassination this was, the memorial was. 7 days, 10 days-ish, right around there. It was on a Sunday. I don't remember when he was shot. It's probably a Wednesday or a Thursday. So around approximately 10 days. So very, very soon. Think of everything that was implied in her statement. That young man, I forgive him. So now you have the widow of Charlie Kirk publicly saying that, I mean, she was obviously referring to Tyler Robinson. She was, and everyone that said this is the most amazing thing that has ever happened. Everyone thought that her statement was the most amazing thing ever. They were agreeing with the factuality of her statement, directly or indirectly, that Tyler Robinson was the one that was the sole actor in killing Charlie Kirk. He was the one that pulled the trigger. He was the one that murdered Charlie. Now, she, again, okay, you know what? Let's just throw the elephant on the table. Okay. Okay, let me say this first. There were probably people around her, FBI, whatever, telling her that, they had the killer. He's the guy that did it, right? So let's just assume she's going on that. Okay? That's fair enough. That's fair enough. And then coached by people, and I use pastoral ministry very loosely here, coaching her, and that's what she says. Okay. But what is implied in that is that he's the killer and case closed. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that at all. And that's not me attacking her here. That's just, I'm not okay with the whole narrative of all of this. And that was the cherry on top of all of it, right? That was just saying, okay, we're done with this. And maybe that was her, maybe it wasn't. And if it was her, you could make the argument that it was done ignorantly. So, okay, fair enough. However, here's the elephant being thrown on the table. Whenever you bring up her name, all of the white knights swoon in to protect my fair lady, right? They're swooping in to save this poor widow. How dare you ever say anything about this poor widow? She lost her husband. This poor widow. Okay, yeah, she did. All right. So I will grant you that it is horrible, right? What happened, and I feel horrible for her and for her children. However, this is not off the table, right? And asking the question doesn't make you a horrible human being. It doesn't. So let me just personalize it, because people can't detach themselves from, we need to protect her. Okay? Being a widow it sucks, right? What happened sucks. And that sucks for her. It sucks for her children, and all of those things. However, let me just say this. If I'll be an easier target, right? So let me just switch the sex roles here. Let's say that my wife started a nonprofit organization that became a multi-million-dollar, extremely influential political organization. Very influential. She's very talented. Has she's respected and has most people's ear on the right, and people on the left are looking out for her, type thing. Let's say she is publicly assassinated, and then I become the CEO of the company and fundraise, raise an insane amount of money after her death. And there are a lot of questions about the finances of the company and about the money that's coming in. Legitimate questions. Now, if people were to have some things to say about me, would that be out of bounds? No one would say that's out of bounds. In fact, they would say that's a normal and natural part of an investigation. Now, I'm not saying she had anything to do with it. I truly want to believe that she had nothing to do with it. And I understand the instinct to want to come in and swoon in and protect her. My point being is that people that are saying that are asking questions are not monsters. That would actually be a normal part of any investigation. And if it was your life and your spouse, you better believe all of those questions would be being asked. So I'm not saying that's out of bounds. That's not me attacking her. That's just an honest, realistic assessment. So there you go. So all of that with, okay, so that's Erica Kirk, and then Trump was what what do you want to call it? The keynote speaker. He was the one that gave the message at the end, which is very troubling. I thought it was abhorrent. I thought it was embarrassing. I thought it was disgusting. That's me remembering that it was a memorial service. If people start to attach the word worship to it with Trump at the end of it, I don't know how you respond to that. It was just embarrassingly bad. I thought he used this. It sounded like any speech, any like campaign speech that he would give anywhere. I mean, he basically used it as a means to talk about himself. And I thought it was just very, very, very bad. I was embarrassed by it. I had to turn it off because I was like, this is disgusting. And then I had to go back to it. And my assessment was still the same. Yep, nope, it's just as bad. And talking about weird behavior, like if this guy was really like your son, and I mean, Charlie exhausted himself trying to get Trump elected multiple times over, right? In 16, 20, and in 24, and was very successful and really believed in the cause. And again, it is what it is, because you can say, well, people, if they're in that situation, they'll respond differently. People mourn differently. Okay, whatever. But I look at Trump's words and his mannerisms and his behavior from that speech and just all of the other ones, and I think those are not the words and the behavior of somebody that is actually, it doesn't make sense to me, and it looks suspicious. I'm sorry, it just does. And you could say, well, that suspicion is ungrounded and unfounded. Okay, that's fair. I mean, that's you're more than entitled to say that. I just don't like it. I personally don't like it at all. It seems really gross and actually suspicious to me. I don't like it at all. So that's my 2 cents on Trump, and it's like it was embarrassingly bad and shameful, and I think he should be ashamed of himself and did more to actually discredit and dishonor Charlie's name than to honor him. So there was a ton of money that went into this event and an absolute ton of money that came out of it. And for me, I look at that and I think it's gross that TPUSA used this as a fundraising event. And I think there are a lot of other ways they could have honored him and could have done it and televised it and not made such a spectacle of it. And again, that's just my opinion, but I think to honor this man that was, and they could say, well, Charlie would have been so pleased and all of this money that was raised for the cause. What was the cause? What did this man believe in? I mean, if you look at the way that he proclaimed Christ, you look at the way that he loved his country and everything that he was teaching about getting your kids out of the public system and getting married young and loving one woman for life and raising your children in the fear of the Lord. Like, did anybody get any of that coming out of this memorial? If you really wanted to honor the man, why not honor what he believed? Why not fan that flame? So I just think that's all around bad that it was used, and gross that it was used for a fundraising event. Essentially, that's what it was. You could say it was 101 other things. Okay, that's fine. But I think if you really reflect upon it, you would think, maybe you can dismiss my point, but I hope to God you at least think I'm not out of bounds by bringing that up and calling it a fundraising event and using the death of Charlie Kirk to raise money for your organization and to bankroll your organization, and probably launder money through your organization. But that's just my 2 cents. I don't have proof of that. Let me ask you this question, because this was one thing, my initial gut response, because my wife and I were watching some of it. We'd go back and forth, and then we see on social media everybody's responses. And I remember we were a couple minutes into it, and I said, I'm not comfortable with all of this. Personally, and I think you need to ask yourself this, and I would imagine a lot of my audience probably already did, right? Because you're kind of peculiar and troublemaking. So if the left had held this same event and were pushing a lot of their things and used it as a stump speech, basically, how would you feel about that? How would you have responded to that? And is that okay? Right? Is this where we're at now? Where we're doing these types of things? And let me just say this: it's going to be controversial, so just a heads up. My initial gut response to this within 5 minutes was, I remember turning to my wife saying, I'm not comfortable with any of this. I wouldn't be comfortable if the left did it. And I'm watching this, and I honestly said out loud, this feels like Nazi propaganda. Not saying that the people not saying that anybody involved with the memorial had the same beliefs as the Nazis. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying they were Nazis. I'm not saying they have any of the same belief as the Nazis. But as far as the rally feel, the spectacle feel, and the all of the patriotism poured on top of this, that's what it felt like. That was my gut response. So when I heard people from the left saying this, my response is, I disdain most of the people on the left, but they have a point. And if I'm an honest broker, I have to say, okay, they at least have a point, because I felt that way initially. I think that it fit every stereotype of Christian nationalism. It fit every single stereotype that people throw out there of what they think Christian nationalism is, in the worst ways. And Christian nationalism is not that. It's amazing to me the people that protect the integrity of Christian nationalism, and they should. I would consider myself in that camp, rightly defined, right? That memorial was not that. That if people say that's what Christian nationalism is, I would say, yeah, that makes me extremely uncomfortable too, because there was no separation of spheres. There was no separation of authority at that point, because it was this weird bastardization of like a patriotic worship service. There was this blending of it all that made me really uncomfortable, right? When you blend all of those things together and you have like the abhorrence of Trump's speech at the very end as like giving the message. And I know nobody would say that organized it, but that's how it comes across. If you look at an actual worship service, right? The pastor went up to speak, right? after you had all of this worship that happened beforehand. Now, again, it was a memorial service, but all of the language surrounding it was that of a worship service. That's not good. And then you put all of the Americana in and through and around that, and you have pastors speaking, and then you have the Secretary of State and the Vice President and the President and a bunch of other people speaking with national title holders, office holders. I wasn't comfortable with it. I thought this is. And I didn't know. And I'm watching it, and people, the response was overwhelming. So maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm not seeing this correctly. Maybe I'm wound too tight. Maybe I'm causing trouble in the wrong ways. I don't want to be that, right? I don't want to draw any attention away from Christ. And I don't want to draw any attention away from good things that he's doing. But watching it, I'm like, that I'm not comfortable with this. This is a distraction. It's from Christ. This is not. My response, it was like, this cannot be pleasing to him. This is messed up, and I just don't like it. I realize I'm in the minority. Probably on that. I don't know. Leave your comments. Did you feel the same way? Am I completely out of bounds by assessing this way? So anyway, that's all I have to say on the memorial of Charlie Kirk. Let me just throw this out there before we close. Shameless promo for my most recent book that is now available. It's on Amazon, all formats. It's doing really good for us. I'm really thankful to God for that. It feels good. The book is Devotional, Volume 1, Meditations on Badassery and Other Masculine Stuff. It's already our number one selling book, so I'm very, very pleased about that. I truly believe that reform and actual spirit-wrought revival in our country is going to come through men and a reformation in their homes. And a lot of my writing is, all of my writing is to try to fan that flame. And I think this book is a helpful addition to fan that flame, to encourage men and to bust their balls a little bit. And I think men will find this book very fun and very encouraging, and it's punchy, and it is absolutely not curated or manufactured. So there you go. I commend that to you. It's available on Amazon now. Leave your comments. Let me know what you think. I know you probably will, one way or the other. I hope this was helpful in some way, and that's all I got for you today. Have a good day. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media and all the places.